If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You are about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So it's been a while, but we have had some segments when we talked about curses, evil eye, witchcraft. But I'm no expert on it. I am so excited about our next guest. This is very, very cool. In a new documentary, British-born filmmaker Liam Leguiu ventures into the mysterious and dangerous world of witchcraft and the occult. A Cursed Man is premiering this year, features Liam traveling the globe, seeking out some of the world's most powerful dark magic practitioners and asking them to place a curse on him. Now, does he survive? Yep, because he's here, and he's going to talk to us about his experience. This is fantastic, and the show, A Cursed Man, is available to stream on Amazon Prime or Apple TV. So I am so excited introducing Liam Leguiu. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Liam.
Yeah, good morning. It's pretty close. It's Leguiu.
Leguiu. Go. Well, very grateful you could come on. I know you've been busy. This is so exciting. What inspired you to explore the world of dark magic?
Fantastic. Yeah, so this idea to go and look for curses, probably not your everyday idea, but it started from a conversation I had with a friend of mine who said he didn't believe in any of this. He doesn't believe in anything spiritual or magical. And I asked him, well, would you let someone put a curse on you? And instantly he said, no way. And so that was fascinating to me, right? Why is it that even people who don't believe in this stuff wouldn't let someone put a curse on them? And so I thought, well, what would happen? And so, famous last words, right? I went out looking for a curse, and I found not one, but two curses to put on myself.
Wow. And how was it, a witch or what sort of practitioner did this?
Yeah, so we had to look quite far and wide to find anyone who would be willing to do this. I mean, first of all, when you pick up the phone or go see someone and say, hey, would you put a curse on me? I was a crazy person. So that was the first hurdle. And the second hurdle is that everyone I spoke to around the globe, across the country and the globe, it was a consistent message that magic practices are not about doing harm to other people. It's really not what this is about. It's about positives. It's about helping people. And it's about community. And so it was really hard to find anyone to practice negative magic. But then what I would say is there is an element of what they call negative magic, and it's usually used for them historically as a form of protection, as a form of self-defense. These were persecuted people and beliefs, and so they have this kind of in their toolkit, as it were, and so it does exist. And so I traveled from California, a coven of witches in California, to New Orleans to speak voodoo and hoodoo practitioners, to Mexico, a practitioner, a bruja in Mexico, and even tantric practitioners in India. And eventually I found the first curse to put on myself was a hoodoo practitioner in New Orleans. And then something a little more different, I entered into a pact with this evil entity in a cave in Mexico. And that was a pact that I brought upon myself that this brujo took me to take part in.
And just the process of you going through that must have been pretty, that must have put a lot of miles on physically, psychologically. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fascinating thing. I mean, first of all, there's in the film, it's certainly an adventure. I mean, we literally have to travel through jungles and across lakes to try and find these places and these people. So that's a fascinating part of the story. But once I'd put these things on me, and it felt a bit like the idea had become a runaway train. It felt like, wait a minute, what am I getting into? What began to happen, as I said, I was a skeptic myself going into this, and I really didn't think this would work. I mean, you wouldn't put a curse on you if you believed it would work, right? And so
right.
I felt like I would be fine. But what began to happen was I started having terrible, terrible nightmares repeatedly every night, to a point where I eventually had the first ever sleep paralysis nightmare, where I woke up and I was unable to move. That was terrifying. And then I began to have these terrible headaches that were these tension headaches that I went to see the doctor about, and they said there's no real cause for them. We don't know where they're coming from, but they were affecting me every day. And so my whole life was beginning to live this sense of anxiety, this sense of dread all around these curses. So I didn't expect anything to happen, but this had seeped into my psychology, and my subconscious. And so now I'm beginning to live a cursed life despite what I was thinking.
Wow. Oh, gosh, amazing. In the final minute, what do you hope audiences will take away from the film A Cursed Man?
Well, it's definitely an adventure story, right? So watching the film, they should enjoy the adventure of it. But one of the things I'm most proud of is the fact that we've captured authentic magical practice that I've never seen in a documentary before. Like we see in Hollywood movies, but real magical practice, this is a first for me, and so I think people will get that. But also, I think, look, I went looking for a curse. I went looking for the negative. But the end result is, if that actually worked and it had this effect on me, then the opposite must be true as well. And so I think by association, there's a positive message.
So true. Exactly. Oh, my gosh. Where can my listeners go for more information?
Great. So the film's out now, so people can check it out. It's available on video on demand. So that's Apple TV and Amazon Prime. I would love for people to check it out and let me know what they think. And
Liam Legalou, thank you so much. Can't wait to have you back, and good luck. Thank you so much for sharing your story. A Cursed Man. Don't go away, guys. We'll be right back. 1-877 Doc Dali.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell our listeners who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me join you to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now and find out how much your case is potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. If you think you deserve compensation, call now to find out how much you qualify for. 800-710-5100.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Hotshot Secret Stiction Eliminator.
Stiction, that sticky friction, undermines the performance of diesel engines. Third-party ASTM testing verifies that Stiction Eliminator removes 2 times as much stiction than any alternative on the retail shelf. Stiction Eliminator is formulated to be left in the engine oil. It works as you drive.
Available at truck stops, Tractor Supply, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and online at HotShotSecret.com. Hotshot Secret. Powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to totalwellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. totalwellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. All right, so, the question is going to come up again now that RFK Jr. is running the HHS at vaccines and autism. And there's been a lot of back and forth, even though the majority of studies are saying, nope, vaccines don't cause autism. But parents are very frustrated that that narrative is not true. That narrative is not being transparent. And there's a lot of confusion. Now, us doctors have seen the studies looking at vaccines and autism and having family members, extended family members with autism. We see the genetic links. And I even asked my family member who had 4 children on the autism spectrum, do you think it was the vaccines? And she said no, because, based on their fathers and based on, there has to be a gene. It's all 4 of them. And but what I have, because again, science is always evolving. And what is the concern parents are having, and what are they showing in videos, and what are they telling doctors are happening to their child post-vaccine to make them think their child got autism from the vaccine? Well, maybe the bridge between this disconnect of vaccines not causing autism, but parents saying their kids are getting autistic after the vaccine, is a different neurological diagnosis. And if it is a different neurological diagnosis, then that needs to be studied and looked at. And so I'm, kind of hoping that we can, do a better job at having a conversation. And this is a conversation that has been kind of long overdue, because we keep saying vaccines don't cause autism, which I agree with. I've seen genetic links. I don't think a vaccine will turn a child into somebody having true autism. But is this another neurological diagnosis? And if that's the case, well, that needs to be diagnosed and evaluated. Now, there have been studies that have looked at different neurological sequelae, whether it's an encephalitis or a Guillain-Barré, where your immune system attacks your spinal cord. And after a vaccine, very rarely, an illness could do this as well, but and can cause paralysis. A doctor friend of mine, after getting the flu shot, developed Guillain-Barré, and he is very anti-vaccine. And he's not conservative; he's very liberal, but he does not like what the vaccines did to him, and he has spoken out about that. Some people may get a severe side effect. We need to be able to allow them to speak, allow them to teach others, and for us as a whole to understand what is the safest way to move forward. Now, the reason why we're stuck is because polio is deadly. Nobody wants polio resurfacing. Measles can be deadly. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry about that. I got hiccups now. Hepatitis can be deadly. Pneumonia, meningitis. What we have done and how we have advanced in terms of our vaccination protocols and vaccines available. And I even though I am so against what we did with the vaccine mandate and making people feel forced that they couldn't keep the job or still serve in the military if they didn't get a vaccine. As much as I'm against that, I still have to say I do believe that the vaccines help save lives for those who could have been at risk of serious and severe COVID. I understand a lot of people, it did nothing more than make them sniffle. But for other people, it killed them. And I do believe that the vaccine helped. So I think it's different strokes for different folks. I think for many people, vaccines are exactly what they need, their cure and the panacea to all their woes. But for others, they may have that rare side effect. News Medical Life Sciences published an article last year, and it's discussing a review published in the journal Nature Reviews Neurology. And it was done by researchers from the UK exploring the links between vaccination and neurological diseases and looking at examples of vaccine-related neurological risks. Now, they emphasize those risks were rare, but they did exist. So when you heard, who was it? Was it Bernie Sanders who said we do not need to relitigate the science on vaccines? We have proven that true autism is not caused by vaccines. Okay, we could still revisit that, but can we now take a sidestep and look at other neurological processes that may mimic autism? Now, we have another study that has come out saying that many cases of autism might be overdiagnosed or incorrectly diagnosed. Now, using an AI algorithm, researchers in Canada combed through 4,000 clinical reports from children being evaluated for autism to measure which criteria was most often used for that. Why were they diagnosed with autism? And the criteria came from the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition, or the DSM-5. That's the gold standard in diagnosing mental conditions, even though there's a lot of debate on, is autism a mental condition? Is it a physical? Is it? Well, the diagnostic criteria for autism was avoiding eye contact, highly limited interests, repetitive movements, trouble forming friendships, having back and forth conversations, among others. The study found social related behaviors like nonverbal communication and forming relationships weren't specific to autism, but were found much more in people with autism than people not diagnosed. Repetitive movements, they cause stimming, and hyperfixations were also strongly linked to autism diagnosis. Now, some people could be fidgety, and they may tap their fingers a lot or tap their pencil. Could that be hyperactivity? We do know that ADHD may be a symptom of autism, but not all people with ADHD have autism, and not all people with autism have ADHD. So are some of these, shall we say, overlapping? So the researchers said the findings suggest doctors are overdiagnosing autism based on the social-related factors, and they're not spending enough time looking at behaviors that might be more closely aligned with the condition, like these repetitive behaviors, like stimming. And, so when we do diagnose somebody with autism, the first thing we try to do is get them integrated to society as quickly as possible. If a child is not potty trained, they're going to have a tough time in kindergarten. They're going to have a tough time making friends. If they have a tough time speaking and communicating with others, again, they're not going to make friends. They're going to isolate. And so a big push we have is to integrate them into society and help them with things that might cause them to struggle or be obstacles for them to be able to navigate in society, whether they're highly autistic, mildly autistic, or on the Asperger spectrum. But, this article suggesting that maybe, we might be calling something autism when it's something else. They're right. I mean, how do we know? We don't have a blood test. But diabetes, we know when you're diabetic. We know when you're pregnant. I mean, we have objective findings. With autism, we are surmising based on the clinical exam and based on their behaviors and them not hitting certain milestones. And like I said, I could tell when an infant can have autism because they are not connecting. One of my family members said that, she thought something was wrong with the child's hearing because when she calls to him, he won't answer. But the hearing test came out normal. I go, well, then that's probably autism. Now, we're very quick to jump to that, and we were right. But, what the converse is, what if it is a hearing issue? What if it's an auditory functioning? Where they aren't able to conceptualize what is being told to them. So, one, we need to kind of hone down how we are diagnosing autism and come up with a better, more objective way to do that. And then B, if we are going back to vaccine-related neurological side effects, which are rare, maybe not necessarily call those autism. And then study that. But right now, with the way the conversation is, we're having Congress people saying, "Oh, we don't need to relitigate the science." Okay, well, let's. Was the science correct in the beginning? Was the science correct to begin with? 1-877 Doc Daliah. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Lisa Wolf here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you. And be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. So this headline caught my eye. I got to tell you, these journalists, honestly. Newsweek, this is the headline. Thousands could be forced to work for Medicaid. And you're like, what? Be forced to work for Medicaid? I mean, the way you're picturing it and drawing it out is that this is barbaric. This is back in Egyptian slavery times. And what they're alluding to is Iowa has passed legislation that would impose new work requirements on Medicaid recipients, something that a lot of people have advocated for. Remember, Medicaid is not Medicare. Medicare for individuals who are seniors or disabled. Medicaid is for able-bodied individuals who are low income or who are not making enough and qualify for being under 138% poverty level, federal poverty level. So this is not requiring those with disabilities to go to work because this isn't Medicare. This is Medicaid. So Iowa's passed legislation that would impose new work requirements on Medicaid recipients, joining a growing number of states pursuing similar measures under recent federal policy shifts. Now, this would possibly mean that in Iowa, certain Medicaid beneficiaries would work at least 80 hours per month or participate in approved job training programs to maintain eligibility for the program. Medicaid's main aim is to provide health coverage for those with limited income and resources. So, if there's work requirements, it will hopefully incentivize them to work, Hopefully their job will have a much better health insurance plan than Medicaid. And then maybe we could do something about the 1 in 4 Americans needing Medicaid. Now, others have raised concerns that the work requirements would lead to many losing access to critical health services on the basis that many able-bodied people using Medicaid are already working. Now, I'm confused by that. So Newsweek says, so the work requirements could target those who are either disabled or unable to work. Well, but again, they're getting Medicare. So it won't affect their health insurance. They're getting Medicare. Now, I understand some people get double Medicare, Medicaid. But if you are, this is for those who are not disabled. If you're getting Medicare, you're in a different classification. And for those people that may be getting both Medicaid and Medicare, my guess is they would be exempt. This is just for people who are completely able-bodied, like the Tsarnaev brothers, who were behind the Boston Marathon bombing. One was actively boxing, and you could see his, you could see his buffness and his muscles. And we're being told that they were on welfare. They were on government dime. I don't. So they're talking about, I don't know if they were actually on Medicaid, but we're talking about those individuals, those with muscles, those who are able-bodied, not those who are physically challenged. So this Senate bill, 615, was passed on Tuesday by the Iowa Senate. So this would mean that people using Medicaid will need to work 80 hours a month to be eligible for the benefits. There are exemptions, okay? If you're under the age of 19, if you're over the age of 65, if you're pregnant, if you're a caretaker for a child under the age of 6, or those who have disabilities. Now, we have about 1 in 4, or 79 million Americans on Medicaid. In Iowa, there are 181,000 currently enrolled in the Iowa Health and Wellness Plan, the state's Medicaid expansion. They say 158,000 of those people are currently non-medically exempt from work requirements. 10% of those may not be subject to the work requirements due to the exemptions provided in the bill. Of the 181 using the program, 12% are medically exempt. Now, if they are medically exempt, then would they qualify for Medicare? You'd think they would, but so, Newsweek is saying, well, people could lose they could be forced to work. Obviously, there's exemptions in the bill. But, we have a problem if a quarter of Americans are requiring government health insurance. But beyond that, it's not just about Medicaid. If you're qualifying for Medicaid, that means you are under 138% of the federal poverty level, which means you are considered, for the most part, poverty. So that means we have a quarter of Americans in poverty. Why is that? If we do, why is UPenn getting $1 billion a year? Why are all these universities getting billions of dollars? To help wealthy college kids? There's such a disconnect. And then we need to look at, why do we have close to 80 million people on Medicaid? Why aren't they working? Or why are the jobs that they're working not paying them enough where they're still considered at poverty level? Is it our national minimum wage? Is it that things are just too gosh darn expensive? I just saw this chart on egg prices, how they skyrocketed during the Biden administration. Why is that? They actually went up during the Obama administration, went down during the Trump administration, went back up during the Biden administration. Why is that? And so these are questions that need to be looked at. So when people say, oh my gosh, you're going to make people work, why is that a bad thing? You could volunteer, you could work, you could, there has to be there has to be a system such that, because the longer you're out of work, the harder it is to go back to work. I am blown away at how many people still aren't working since COVID. There'll be individuals calling up, and I have their medical history, and they'll have a cold or flu. And I'm like, all right, do you need a note for work? And they'll say, no, I'm not working. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Oh, I haven't worked in years. Really? You're young. You're a 30-year-old woman. Is it that you have kids or you have... No, I don't have kids. Well, isn't that boring? I would be bored to death if I wasn't working. What do you do with your spare time? How do you live? How do you eat? Well, Chip, there's a food, the supplemental SNAP program, and and I'm glad we're taking care of individuals. But if you can work, why are we taking care of you? And then if that's the case, we're starting to see more and more people say, well, why should I work? When people do the calculations and say, look, I would have to make at least 6 figures to get off all the government support services. It's easier for me just to not work. Now, here we are with a quarter of Americans roughly around poverty level. And I have to say roughly because you qualify for Medicaid at 138% of federal poverty level. So there's still that 38% wiggle room. So now they're saying that more than 5 million Americans are at risk of losing their Medicaid coverage if Congress enacts work requirements in 2026. 5 million of the 80 million? How do 75 million get exempted? See, either we're paying for Medicare or we're paying for Medicaid. I don't understand that why we have so many individuals requiring this. I get in terms of seniors. I get in terms of those with disability. But, we have able-bodied people. They should be working. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-910-7500. That's 800-910-7500. Call now to find out how much your case could be worth.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. Well, they believe that they might have found the Ark of the Covenant. This isn't a Raiders of the Lost Ark movie script. CIA documents claim that the Ark of the Covenant has been found, where the 10 Commandments could be intact. I'm blown away at this. According to the Bible, the Ark of the Covenant was built by the Israelites shortly after they fled Egypt, around 13th century BC. Moses placed the 10 Commandments inside. I understand Mel Brooks said there were 15. He dropped one of the tablets, so there were 10, but from what I understand, only 10. And according to Daily Mail, the CIA conducted experiments in the 1980s with individuals who claimed they could perceive information about distant objects, events, other people. But the report details one of these tests where remote viewer number 32 was given coordinates to locate a target. And they described the Ark of the Covenant hiding in the Middle East. Now, I'm not sure about the science behind all this, but some historians believe the Ark of the Covenant was originally kept inside the Holy of Holies, the innermost chamber of the ancient Temple of Jerusalem, where if you went in, you died. It was, where God's power was. You could not go into the Holy of Holies. But then when the Babylonians attacked Jerusalem and took over in, I guess, 586 BC, the covenant was stolen. There is also legend that the artifact was taken to Ethiopia and now resides in a local church. Evidence that the chest existed has yet to be found, but the CIA document that was declassified in 2000 said it was discovered back in 88. They said a target is a container. This container has another container inside of it. The target is fashioned of wood, gold, and silver, and it is decorated with a 6-winged angel. They say the remote viewer continued to say that the coffin-shaped object is located somewhere in the Middle East and saw people in the area speaking Arabic. The remote viewer, however, was not told that they were searching for the lost covenant before the experiment began. So because they described this, and they were like, that sounds like the covenant. Now, it could have been that person just saw, Indiana Jones, even though I think that movie came out in 82, 83. Anyway, according to biblical history, the sacred gold-covered wooden chest was constructed at about 1445 BC. And the 10 Commandments is a list of directives. You shall not kill, honor thy father and mother, you shall not covet thy neighbor, you shall not commit adultery. And according to Daily Mail, some historians believe the ark remained inside the ancient Temple of Jerusalem for centuries, but only the high priest of the Israelites could see it. Even he was only allowed on Yom Kippur, which is our Day of Atonement, the holiest of days, but it vanished. So they go into how the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, in the 70s and 80s, as well as the CIA, have employed individuals alleging to have paranormal capabilities and have been acquiring intelligence about distant events. And then there's this Project Sunstreak attempted to use psychics known as remote viewers to gather intelligence on targets using only coordinates. And these remote viewers are supposedly able to project their consciousness beyond their bodies to observe a far-off location. Whether you believe it or not, my question is, all right, go get it. You have drones, you have radar, you have, and I understand people have been combing the earth for it, but okay, go get it. That'd be pretty cool. And I understand if you open it, you have to close your eyes. You don't want to be burned to a crisp like we saw in Raiders of the Lost Ark. But that would be absolutely fantastic. Now, some of you will say, leave it well enough alone. If God wanted it found, it would be found. But I love this in terms of, being both religious and scientific. Having evidence of what the Bible says. My faith is because I've had evidence that only I've seen and felt. But to actually have, like evidence was found with the Noah's Ark and the, even though the Ark itself, the wood would have already been deteriorated. But in terms of the flooding and, there was something that was found that was supposed to be evidence of the Noah's Ark flooding event, but I just can't recall it at this time. But having something like this really helps reinforce people's faith. And, I get asked all the time by other people who are scientifically minded, Daliah, do you really believe in all this? Do you really believe a serpent told Eve to eat the apple? If Adam and Eve had babies and then there was Cain and Abel, where did all the other women come in? And where did all the other, how did God make the earth in 6 days? And then on the seventh day rest. And really, does God rest? Isn't his work always happening? And so there's a lot of conjecture. There's a lot of, analysis that happens as it pertains to that. And, how I've been able to come to grips with it scientifically is a day wasn't necessarily a 24-hour day at the time. Maybe a day was a prolonged evolutionary period. Now, maybe some of these things were figurative and not literal. But the temples existed. The battles existed. We have bloodlines. I believe it. And I believe everyone's faith has credence and evidence to it. But it's difficult to convince others, and I'm not saying we have to convince others. In my religion, we don't actively proselytize. It's whoever wants to come and join our flock, the Bible says, can join our flock. If they don't, they don't. We don't actively convert. I understand there's a lot of religions that want to help people find the Lord or help people find Jesus to help their lives. And I respect that in terms of, helping these people and them becoming happier and them having a purpose and a mission. And, but our religion is, if you want to join us, you can join us. And not a lot of people want to join us, but, we're still here. Thank God. But having this evidence does make you think, look, there's a higher power. And it's just not all about our smartphones. It's not all about what's on Netflix. That we're here for a reason. We have a job to do. And we do have somebody to pray to that may listen to our prayers. And it is real. It's real to me. But something like this may help other people who are questioning go, okay, all right. So, the Bible is, one of the most amazing books and historical accounts out there. And that's how I look at it. So I hope they do find it. We'll see. 1-877-DOC Dali, 1-877-DOC DALI. Real quick, there was a coffee recall in 15 states. Why? Because there were ground coffee cases that were mislabeled as decaffeinated that had caffeine. The recall was initiated by Manismo Zanetti Beverage USA. It involves 12-ounce bags of Our Family branded Transverse City Cherry artificially flavored decaf light roast ground coffee. So it's not a whole bunch of coffee brands, but caffeine mislabeling could cause a huge health risk to those with heart conditions, pregnancy. With pregnancy, I was trained no more than 2 cups of coffee. You didn't necessarily have to go to decaf, but try to avoid the extra caffeine because caffeine could vasoconstrict, and that could limit blood flow to the baby. But I just wasn't a big coffee drinker, so I didn't drink it. But for people who have high blood pressure or arrhythmias, that's important. So, if there's a label that says decaffeinated, you want to be able to trust it. So I'm glad they're on top of it. 1-877-DOC Dali.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.